Hi everybody, welcome to the Overeaters Anonymous 100-pounder special focus meeting. Today is the 6th of October 2021. My name is Rita Q and I am delighted today to introduce Matt JF from Kentucky. Matt is going to tell us about his experience, strength and hope. I'll leave it up to you now, Matt, take it away.
Thank you very much, Rita, for the invitation, and thanks everyone for joining today. I'm going to just share my screen directly, see how that goes. Are you all able to see a picture of a little boy in a diaper right now? Yeah, cool. Good. Okay. Well, then I already have something to thank God for, so I'll just say a quick prayer. God, as always, I'm grateful for you having brought this program into existence and me, so I'm probably to it. And for the opportunity to be of service, I ask that you guide my words to be of maximum service and usefulness to your children who are on this call, and that you help me bear in mind the still suffering compulsive overeater, whether or not they're a newcomer, and just try and be of service. Amen. So I'm just gonna qualify quickly. I'm a marketer by trade, and I deal in data a lot. And as such, you're going to see some of that reflected in these slides, but I'll go through them pretty fast. There's no math, I promise. So I'm Matt JF. I'm a recovered compulsive overeater. I live in Louisville, Kentucky, or Louisville, as they say here. I'm fairly new to this city. I grew up, the picture you see there in front of you is me, I don't know, a year and a half old maybe, on my dad's lap. I'm sure that was just water in the glass. I grew up outside Philadelphia in the US, in New Jersey. And I was born at a fairly normal weight. Like, that is not an obese child sitting on that man's lap there. And so, like, I mean, that looks pretty normal, but the thing that I know today is I was already a compulsive overeater. Like, what's true for me is I was born this way and I'm going to die this way. And like, it is not an option for me to not be a compulsive overeater any more than it is not an option for me to, switch from having brown eyes to blue eyes. It's just never going to happen. But for a long time, most of the pictures I'm going to show you were taken at times when I didn't believe that, when I thought that being fat, being clinically morbidly obese, was a sign that there was something wrong with me, not a sign that there was just something true about me. So that's me sort of, before the problem became super evident. Here's me a little bit later. This is during high school, so I was probably 16 or 17, maybe 18 when these photos were taken. And I include them both so that you can sort of get a sense of there aren't many photos of me from that era, but what I looked like back then. I'm about to be 51, by the way, so this sort of gives you a sense of the timing, but also so that you could marvel at my incredible fashion sense. So I mentioned I'm a marketer and I like data, and so that's why this chart is in here, because it feels like as I qualify, it's important to kind of walk through what my journey was. So when I started university at age 18, that's about what I looked like. Obviously, I had come up quite a ways from that little bit chubby baby sitting on that man's lap. I'm 5'8". I don't know what that is in meters for those who use meters, but not very tall, well shy of 2 meters tall. And at age 32, in 2003, I had eaten my way up to 380 pounds. And that is a photo of me basically at my top weight. Again, there are not that many photos. As so many of us do, I think I sort of assiduously avoided the camera anytime I saw one, because I did not like what I saw. What I saw when I saw that photo was not a sick and suffering compulsive overeater. What I saw was someone who was like wrong, who was doing it wrong, who couldn't get it right, who was smart and could figure out so many things, but could never figure out why he couldn't stop eating. So at the age of 32, I was diagnosed with an outside medical condition that led to me, that ostensibly led to me having a Roux-en-Y gastric bypass. But of course, the real reason was I didn't want to be that fat anymore. For those who don't know, a Roux-en-Y gastric bypass is the kind where they not only create they surgically create a small stomach pouch, but they also actually reroute your small intestine. And my weight plummeted, as you can see on the chart. Like those are guesses, but I know that basically my weight dropped to a low of about 235 pounds before eventually stabilizing. You know, as you can see, it more or less stabilized in the kind of 250 to 270 range, almost without fail. And I looked like that, more or less. I looked like what you see there. There is, however, something, so I wanted to plot a few major life events here because they do track with the data, and it's interesting to me to be able to look at the curve and know, oh, this is when that happened, because of course that's happened that way. Now you would think, divorce starting, pretty stressful, why did his weight drop after that? So growing up, everything you see here, what I had tried on the way to, I had tried Pay and Ways. I had even tried OA as a kid. I remember vaguely going to a meeting at the age of like, I don't know, 12 and maybe 11, and being the only male and the only person, I think, under 40 in the room, and being handed a gray sheet and not knowing what the hell to do with it. So I had like tried OA, but not really. But along the way, I also did, I'll mention the brand name. I did Weight Watchers, and I did Weight Watchers camp as well as a child, and it was a pretty terrible experience. I did, you know, University of Pennsylvania's Learn program. I did, you know, diets and exercise, and I never really did, you know, Atkins or anything like that. But like everything that came out, I would try. I tried Fen-Phen when Fen-Phen was legal. You know, medications, doctors, therapists. Nothing worked. An interesting thing to note, though, is that along the way there, probably around, I'm going to guess, right around maybe 2008, while I was still on my way back up from that low, I was in a therapist's office once, and I said, I had this sudden realization, which was, Tony, I was very excited. I was like, I think when I feel bad feelings, I think that I eat until I'm physically uncomfortable, so I don't have to feel the feelings anymore. And you know, I now sort of remember him getting like a sad, knowing expression on his face and leaning forward and saying, "Yeah, I think you do." And I was like, "Well, this changes everything," but nothing changed. And in hindsight, that's how I know I am a true compulsive overeater, because that is a valid piece of self-knowledge. I have an emotional intolerance that triggers my physical cravings, and that triggers the phenomenon. Yeah, so the phenomenon of craving is triggered by emotional intolerance. And then some foods, once I start, I can't stop, and I can't stop from starting. If self-knowledge was sufficient, I wouldn't have continued to look the way I looked, but more importantly, I would not have continued to feel the way I felt. And as you can see, nothing changed. So, but the reason I went down that path was the only other time, so you see three steep downward trends on this chart. One was the gastric bypass, of course. The last one is OA. But the one in the middle is a peer goals group. It was a peer accountability group that I just happened to stumble into right after like the conversation about getting divorced from what was eventually technically a 20-year marriage started. And it was not a weight loss thing. It was just, you know, it was 8 guys who got together once a week for an hour or two and just set goals over 8 to 12 week periods. And then we just got together and talked about what was hard. And going in, I didn't know anything about, like, I had no idea what I was walking into. It happened through someone who I had known through work, but was not even a friend. I later learned that he had a long-term recovery in the mothership program, and that was sort of how he envisioned that group playing out. but I didn't know that at the time. The reason I pointed out is because although I know that fellowship is not one of the steps, it is not lost on me that the only other time I successfully managed to like lose weight in a sustained way and it didn't seem hard was when I had a fellowship to support me. And so what I want to say to those who are new is keep coming back. Do not undervalue the fellowship, because while showing up at meetings does not guarantee finding a spiritual solution, not showing up at meetings, I think, is probably a pretty strong bet that you won't. And then in February of 2019, I say it accidental OA, and I'll explain why I say that. That was when this journey began for me, and you can see that there was a period of pretty fast weight loss. And I'm going to walk through that a little bit because it feels worth it to me. So there's the divorce start, there's the peer goals group, and here's accidental OA. Now, so you see that steep trend afterward, right? So here's what was true on that date of February 2019. And this is like partly what it was like and partly what happened. I'm hearing someone unmuted. I don't know if it's possible to mute the lines. Thank you. What was true for me on February 23rd.
Should be.
I'm sorry? Okay. What was true for me on February 23rd of 2019 was the following. Number one, I was 5'8", still, probably always will be. I weighed about 260-ish pounds. I don't know exactly. I was not at that time, sort of surprisingly, I was not trying to lose weight. Like, it was not a big priority for me at that time. I had relative peace with who I was and what I looked like and how things were going. I was nearly 3 years into what wound up being a 3-year relationship with someone who had, what I felt was really good recovery in AA. And so I knew more than the average person about 12-step programs because I had her and other people in my life who had good recovery in AA. It was also true that she and I had talked about Overeaters Anonymous exactly one time. And I know this is being recorded, and I'm going to go ahead and curse because I feel like it's really necessary to truly understand what I'm about to say. She asked me what I thought of OA. And I said out loud, quote, "I think it's bullshit." And she said, "Why?" And I said, "Because I know that step one is we admitted we were powerless over food, that our lives had become unmanageable. And I'm sorry, but go F yourself," since I did not say F. Because I am not anorexic, I'm not bulimic, I don't weigh 900 pounds, I can get out of bed, I can fit through doorways, and I'm not going to binge eat until I actually burst something inside my body. So go F yourself. That's not me. And so, that was sometime like in 2018, probably, that I said that, maybe 2017. And I held that belief. Like I had no interest in OA, none. I was also a pretty devout agnostic, which means to me that I was reasonably sure that there was like something out there. But however sure I was of that, I was much more sure that it had absolutely nothing to do with me. Like, it was not a street level, why does Matt eat donuts? Higher power, God, whatever. It was a, these galaxies are colliding. Oh, there's a black hole, higher power. Like, it was not about me. It was about the universe. And I grew up with no religion, by the way, none. So I am completely a-religious. I continue to be completely a-religious. I'm not anti-religious. I don't have any myself. I had prayed maybe 5 times in my entire life at that point. The other thing, though, that was true was that I had a job that was about helping people. It was about supporting entrepreneurs. I worked at a foundation. And at some point in the couple years prior, I had an idea had come up. I don't know if it was mine or someone else's. I honestly can't remember. That like there should be a fellowship program for people trying to start businesses that that was based on a rubric, that was based on like a thing you could just download and print out, and that could be self-organizing, where people could just like get together and offer each other fellowship and support. So this idea had come up, and I went to my partner at the time and said, hey, what do you think about this idea? And she said, I think it's a great idea. And I was like, all right, me too, like, awesome, what should I do now? And she said, you should read the big book. Now, at that time, you know, we had been together a couple of weeks. She had a couple big books. I had picked it up. I had leafed through it. And I had the following impressions. Number one, it is very aptly named. It is a big book. And number two, it is the most written in 1939 book that I had ever seen. So that did not, yes?
15 minutes.
Thank you so much. That did not feel like a great option to me. And so I said to her, is there something else that I could do, like not involving reading the big book? And she said, just listen to a big book step study. There's a ton of them on YouTube. They're free. Like that will give you what you need. And I was like, oh, that sounds much better. What did that take, like an hour, hour and a half? And she was like, more like 6 hours. And I went, oh, okay. So I had a list of things to listen to when I have time, and that went onto that list. So, so that was also true, was that was on that list on that day. Now, cut to February 25th or 23rd of 2019. My accidental OA journey began, and I'm gonna finish with these slides and then take them down. So I found my way into OA. You can see my weight dropped. For those who feel like, well, the time's not right, it's too hard right now, there's no way this will work, I'll just wait until this is over, I'll wait until that's over, blah blah blah. I just want to like run through a few things that happened subsequent to me stumbling into this program unexpectedly. So I stumbled in. Less than a month after I stumbled in, I was laid off from my job. So I was downsized. I don't know if that, basically, like I was fired, but it was for a good reason. Like they didn't need my position anymore. And it was also my recommendation. So it was not an unwelcome bit of news, but still a major life change. So I was laid off from my job. That relationship I mentioned ended in May of that year. So it's like end of February, I find my way into this program. March, I get laid off. April, I finish working at that place that I got laid off from. May, that 3-year relationship unexpectedly ends. And while it ended fairly healthfully, it was a lot. It was pretty stressful. And I was living in a place that I had no intention of staying, and so I knew I was going to move. So I moved from Kansas City, Missouri to Chicago, Illinois, a place where I had never lived before and didn't have like a big, strong network of people. And then in the fall of that year, I started a new business. I decided I was going to be a consultant. So I mentioned, in the middle, by the way, like my daughter graduated high school and I took her down to college orientation. She's my only child. So I mentioned all of this by way of saying that was a lot in a pretty short period of time. But you can see from the trend here that like none of those things, and this is not me, right? I'm not claiming credit for this. Because of how I took steps 1 through 3, which I'll talk about a little bit, like it was all okay. Through all of that, my hair was never on fire. I just kept working the program. I kept going to meetings. I kept talking to people. I kept reading the big book, and I kept doing the footwork. And it just worked. So the amazing thing to me in hindsight is both that I was not permitted by my higher power to allow any of those things to be an excuse to just stop doing the work. But the other thing is that as I kept doing the work, like I kept getting a little bit saner all the time. And that is just an incredible gift. So anyway, I'll wrap up with the slides. Again, like that's a close-up of me pre-surgery, more or less, nearly 400 pounds. The picture on the right is a photo of me in November of 2018, so just a few months before I found my way into the program. And this is me today. I've got about 950 days of abstinence, which has and continues to evolve. I've got nearly 2 years recovered, finished working the steps, living in 10, 11, and 12. My weight today is 215 to 220 pounds, depending on the day. That's down from about 260 pre-program and down from about 160 from my all-time high. And more or less, I'm happy, joyous, and free. I mean, it's, there's that saying, I came for the vanity, I stayed for the sanity. That's not why I didn't come for the vanity. I came for the sanity. And I don't stay for the vanity. Like I'm very aware that if I had to trade every pound I've lost all the way back up to 380 pounds to keep the sanity that I have found in this program, that is a no-brainer. I would do it in a heartbeat. Fortunately, I mean, like, that's not something that anyone's asking of me, and so it's probably easy to say, but I would absolutely go right back this next second to weighing 400 pounds if I could just keep the sanity that I have found in this program. So what happened was, there were high winds in the Midwest that led to me having to make an unexpected 17-hour drive to get back home to Kansas City. And so I got in the rental car, and like an unwelcome 17-hour drive. Like I like driving, but not that much. I got in the rental car. I went to my list of things to listen to when I have time, and right at the top of the list was Big Book Step Study. So I thought, perfect opportunity. I will listen to a Big Book Step Study. So I went to YouTube and I entered I typed in Big Book Step Study and I hit search. Now, what happened next, I understood instantly because I work in digital marketing. I knew that YouTube was owned by Google. I know how Google's search algorithms work. I know how their ads work. I mean, as much as anyone does. So when YouTube took in my search query, Big Book Step Study, just those 4 words, and said to Google, hey, Google, there's a guy named Matt Fisher who's looking for a Big Book Step Study. What would you recommend that we show him? And Google was like, Matt Fisher. Oh, Matt Fisher? I know that guy. Please give him this Overeaters Anonymous Big Book Step Study right at the top of the search results list. Not an ad. Google was like being helpful, right? Which was not really how I took it in the moment. So right at the top, very first thing was Laurie C's Big Book Step Study, Overeaters Anonymous Big Book Step Study. So I remember I'm in the car, I'm like just getting on the highway, I see this and I'm like, my first thought was, that is not what I asked for, Google. Like that's kind of a dick move. My second thought was, I'm not gonna listen to this because I think it's bullshit. Like, why would I listen to this? I don't care. I don't care about this stupid program, these stupid people. Well, it's whatever. But then my third thought was, no, I should listen to this because I'm already in the tank for AA. I don't need to be convinced that AA is a good idea. So it's a higher bar for my idea for entrepreneurs if I can listen to this craziness and sort of walk away feeling like, oh, okay, I guess I can kind of understand why that works for them. And I remember thinking, all right, Google, challenge accepted. And I picked up the gauntlet and I pressed play. And so remember, I'm going in with this attitude that's like, this is complete bullshit. 30 minutes in, if you haven't listened to it, by the way, it is a wonderful step study. Laurie C is just a wonderful speaker. But he was qualifying and he was telling a story. I think he probably weighed more than 400 pounds at this point when in the story. And he talks about a family holiday when they had roasted a goose, a thing that I didn't know people actually ever did. And how much he loves goose skin, something I didn't know people ate. And so he's there and they're sitting down to dinner, but the goose skin, because it's so fatty and tough, was not served. It was still in the kitchen, like draped over the carcass. Okay. So he was like, well, I'm going to sneak into the kitchen to like just get a little goose skin. And I remember thinking, like, you're going to sneak into the kitchen? You weigh 400 pounds. You're not sneaking anywhere. And so he, sneaks into the kitchen and he goes to the carcass where the skin is. And his intention is like, I'm just going to put a little piece in my mouth and tear it off and chew it and enjoy it. Fine. So I'm sorry, I'm hearing a ton of background noise all of a sudden. So he does that, but the thing is, it's still hot, right? So all the fat is still like it's hot. It's hot fat. It's basically oil, and the skin is tough. And he couldn't tear off a bite because it was too slippery and too tough. And so he tells the story of how next thing he knows, he's got an entire goose skin in his mouth. And it is like, it's so hot that it's burning his mouth. And also hot oil, hot grease is running down his chin and dripping down his front. So I'm driving my car, and there are probably some of you right now who are like, please stop talking about that. It's disgusting. And you're right. I was driving the car and I was like, I'm going to throw up. I need to stop. I can't listen to this anymore. Like, I'm going to puke. And that's when he said, for me, there are some foods that once I start, I can't stop, and I can't stop from starting. And I mean, the way I remember it, maybe I asked myself the question, like, I wonder if there are foods like that for me, but I don't remember doing it.
5 minutes.
What I remember is, thank you. What I remember is my brain immediately rattled off 6 foods that were like that for me. It was like, oh, sure, like these 6 foods. And I remember thinking, wait, what? Like, if that's what it is to be a compulsive overeater, I think I might be a compulsive overeater. Shit. And so when I said it was accidental OA, that's what I mean. I didn't, and I mentioned how, the way that I took steps 1 through 3. If I had tried to confront my disease head on, and I don't mean my condition of being a compulsive overeater, to me, because I was presented with it just like as a factual statement, and it was simply undeniably true for me that there were some foods that once I started, I couldn't stop, and I couldn't stop from starting. I couldn't deny that I was a compulsive overeater. Like, there was no shame in it either, right? It was just like, it was like having brown eyes, right? Like, it was no different. That's not my disease. My disease is that deep inside me, there had been a long-held, absolutely certain belief that I am a worthless piece of shit, that I have nothing of any value to offer anyone, and that it would be much better for all concerned if I had just never been born at all. But since I was, I should really just kill myself in the most humiliating way possible by, dying of donuts. And if I had ever realized that and tried to confront my disease head on, because I didn't understand it was a belief, I just thought it was true. I wasn't even at such a low level that I wasn't even aware of it. I would never have, that is a crushing thing to realize about oneself. I would never have been able to tackle this. But confronted with the simple truth that, there are some foods that once I start, I can't stop, and I can't stop from starting, and it doesn't matter why that's true. That was the only way I was ever going to get into this program. I didn't understand that about my disease until later. I just knew that I had this condition. And I also knew that what I heard in the voice of this man speaking on this YouTube, it's a video, but it's audio only, was what I wanted. I did not care about the weight loss. I didn't come for the vanity. I came for the sanity. I wanted my life to be sane and complete in a way that it never had been. So that's how I wound up in this program. That's what happened. And as a consequence of that, steps 1 through 3 for me were not, after struggling for a half century with the notion of compulsive overeating, I suddenly realized, it was like I became an overnight success after 50 years of dying slowly. It was like, once I admitted that, step 1 was just, that was, okay, I can't deny this. And it also made total sense to me that, because it wasn't my fault, but it also wasn't anyone's fault. No one chose this for me. I mean, I didn't choose this. Who would choose this? But no one else chose it either. No human power created this condition in me. So how is any human power ever going to address the condition? How is that going to happen? And so step 2 for me was like, okay, well, yeah, I guess if I want to recover from this condition, I guess it's going to take a power greater than me, and probably greater than any human. And so step 3 for me was just a no-brainer. It was like, okay, yeah, I'm willing to take it on faith that like the worst thing that's going to happen is it turns out there is no God and I'm suffering no more than I am today. I'll take that bet, because I had heard from this guy on this video, who by the way is an atheist. I had heard from him on this video that he had something that I wanted. And if an atheist could do it, and I was like, I'm not even an atheist. I think there's something. All right, I'm going to just do it. I'm not going to question it. I'm not going to worry about why. I'm just going to admit the truth and do the work and see what happens. And that's what I did. And when I say I did it, it never has felt to me like I worked this program. This program worked me. I felt I did not propel my way through this program on self-will. I was pulled through this program. And I can't explain it and I can't share it other than to say that what it's like today is this. Like, you saw the photos, but you also heard me say that that I'd give back all the weight to feel the way I feel, to live in 10, 11, and 12, to understand that belief that I held, that I'm a worthless piece of crap, that I have nothing of any value, is a belief. It's not a fact. It's not a fact the way that I'm a compulsive overeater is a fact. And the great thing about a belief is, like, it's a choice. It's still there. It's not that the disease went away. It's just that I know that it's not true. And so when it shows up, the way that I think about the change in my life, the sanity is this, and I know I'm about out of time, so I'll wrap up with this. When I started this journey, inside my soul, like, it was a very small room, and it only had room, and there was a table that just about filled the room, and the table was only big enough to have one chair. And because that was the only chair, every time feelings showed up, which they do all the time, right? I wound up on my ass on the floor, and they got the chair because there was only one chair. And after a lifetime of feeling like the fact that I couldn't hold my chair meant that there was something wrong with me, I now believe that for me, the process of doing the footwork is just the process of ever so slightly, with every choice, slightly enlarging that room so that the table can be a little bigger, so there's room for more chairs. So, like, and for a long time I thought the point is, well, the feelings will stop showing up. Like, I'll stop believing that I'm a worthless piece of crap, or I'll stop feeling shame, I'll stop feeling anger, I'll stop feeling whatever. And then I realized that's not the point at all. The point is, they don't get my chair, ever. It's my chair. And the table's now big enough in a big enough room that there are enough chairs for everyone who shows up, almost all the time. And to me, that's the sanity. That's the gift, right? And I even now, like, I get enough warning now to recognize that it was like, sometimes I can predict the feelings that are about to show up. And, like, I'll see a notification about an email, and I'll see just enough of the email, and I'll have the very clear thought in total serenity, oh, I'm going to be furious in about 2 minutes. I'm going to read that email and I'm going to be furious, which is a weird thing to think. And you'd think that thinking the thought would be sufficient to keep me from being furious. No, I'm still furious. But knowing it's coming and being able to offer it a chair instead of winding up on my ass in the dirt on the floor is such a better way to live. And that's what I mean when I say I would gladly give back every pound to be able to keep that larger room with a bigger table and more chairs. I mean, that's a no-brainer to me. So I'm staying for the sanity too. And I appreciate all of you letting me share my insanity with you here today. Thank you very much.